Hello, welcome to Glasgow Riders Nation with me, your host Owen James, channel that brings you your team every single day, guys. We're going to talk all things Rangers today, whether you're picking this video up this afternoon, this evening, whenever you are finding time to catch all the latest. And you know what, it's Wednesday today. Still obviously no new arrivals yet as regards the signings. Looks like Max Aarons will be the next one in, though. According to the reports this morning, he is in Glasgow presently and is looking to sign a season-long loan deal with Rangers. I think it'll be a great move for the club. Attacking right fullback, quality player. A defender, right back that can actually defend, I think will be a major move forward for the club. It's the first step. And unfortunately, I think that's where we are. People talk about loans and not wanting loans. And, preferably, I don't want loans. Preferably, I would like us to go out and sign our own players and bring in players that are going to stay at the club long term that we can build for. Now, whether that's a situation with Aarons or not, I don't know. Look, there's always the concern with loan players, whether it's been Malik Tillman, Abdallah Sima, Vaslav Cherny, you kind of work with someone else's players, you kind of make that player better, fitter, stronger, and then they leave you. And the club that you've kind of done the work for get all the benefit, apart from Tillman, obviously, which we got a little bit of cash for. So that's obviously always the concern. But look, at this moment in time, I think we're going to be having a combination of signings and loans. I don't think there's going to be massive sums of money spent. I just don't think it's possible with FFP and PSR for us to go and be spending huge amounts of money. Obviously, our revenue is way below theirs from across the city at this point. It just shows how desperately we need to get Champions League football if we are to maintain a challenge and to be relevant again in this game and to get back up to the top. We need Champions League football. It is the money. At the end of the day, if we don't qualify for the Champions League, they do. They get 40 million. We get, say, we go into Europa League. The most we can get is 21 million. It's just over half. They've getting half again more than us. So again, they're constantly totting up more and more money. People talk about this Europa League being our standard. To quote Chris Boyd, give me peace. We don't need to be in the Europa League. We need to be in the Champions League. And it's not about being competitive. It's about getting the money. And people talk about us failing in the Champions League. I mean, look at who Celtic played in that league phase last year. I think with the exception of Villa and Dortmund, we could have given all those teams a serious game, even with that awful squad last season. So, look, I think there's a lot of irrelevant pish spoken about the Champions League from some of our fans. I think some of our fans are way too obsessed with the Europa League. I don't want to play Europa League football this year. I'd want to play Champions League football. If we don't get in the Champions League, I'd rather not play European football at all. I'd rather just concentrate on trying to win all 3 domestic trophies. Champions League or bust, it has to be, realistically. Obviously, if we don't beat Panathinaikos, we drop down to the 3rd qualifying round of the Europa League, and then you've got a whole journey there as well with more games and more stress and a squad that's not quite there and quite ready yet. Look, so obviously Max Aarons looks like the first one to be, obviously the second one, obviously after Lyle Cameron, technically third if you count Oscar Cortez, although even Rangers haven't had the nerve, I think, to announce Oscar Cortez, given all the times of all the games that he's missed and all the injuries. And look, don't get me wrong on Oscar Cortez, I think there's a player in there. I do think there's a player in there. It's whether you can keep him fit. That's the big issue, isn't it? Okay, so the other one obviously is Connor Cody. Connor Cody looks to be getting closer. Apparently that will be a cut price move from Leicester to Rangers. Won't be a massive salary, a massive transfer fee apparently for the player. Leicester are looking to allow him to leave because they're looking to cost cut after their relegation to the Championship. There's some PSR issues around Leicester from the last time they were in the Championship, and obviously rulings and things like that went against them. So, they do need to cut their costs. So I think there's an element there of cost cutting with getting obviously Cody off the off the squad, really. I think that's off the wage bill. Cody's a good player. He's technically very good. He's good going forward. He's a good ball player. He's played for England. He's got a lot of experience, and he'd bring that to the. And I don't get Rangers fans who are saying that he's rubbish, he's awful, he's crap, he's a Championship duffer, etc., etc. They obviously haven't watched him play. And just going off what they've kind of read from others and jumping on the bandwagon a little bit. This guy's played a load of games in the Premier League, the strongest league in the world. He's captained teams in the Premier League. He's played for England. He's a good footballer. He's a very good footballer, and I think he would excel in Scotland. I really do. And people talk about, he hasn't got any pace. The guy reads the game exceptionally well. Now, when you read the game well, it does kind of offset that need for pace. I think, as I said before, you know, you look at Virgil van Dijk, who is the perfect example of that. So for me, you know, at the end of the day, Conor Coady, I think, would be a very good acquisition for Rangers. The other one, obviously, is Kavama Poku. That now looks to be dead. It looks like Poku has chosen to join Queen's Park Rangers over Rangers. I've got to say, it's one I genuinely don't get. Now, I know QPR may be able to position to pay him more cash, given the fact they're in the EFL Championship, and the EFL Championship TV deal is massive. The EFL Championship clubs get an absolute shed ton more money even than any of the Scottish clubs, due to that massive TV deal. And obviously the revenue streams down in England are just so much higher than they are in Scotland. So I get that. But, you know, if a player really truly has ambition and really truly wants to kick on to the next level, why is joining QPR a good... I don't get it. I mean, if he'd gone to Birmingham City, or he'd gone to Sheffield United, or he'd gone to Blackburn Rovers, or he'd gone to Middlesbrough, I could have understood it. I could have kind of understood it, because these are clubs that are going to be competing for promotion to the Premier League. These are clubs that are probably going to be top 2, top 3 next season. QPR, the best they'll be is a mid-table team. QPR are, you know, if you look up the word mediocre in the dictionary, you'd see a picture of the QPR badge. They are the very definition of mediocrity. They are the very definition of a small, irrelevant club. And that's why I genuinely don't get QPR. Like I said, I just don't understand it. You know, even if he'd gone to one of the lower level Premier League teams, you know, one of those teams that will be battling relegation this season, the Sunderlands, the Wolves, the Burnleys of this world, you could kind of understand that because it's playing in the Premier League. But to obviously throw away European football, you know, chance to win trophies, 55,000 at Ibrox, playing for one of the biggest clubs in Europe, to go and play for Queen's Park Rangers, to me, just makes absolutely zero sense. It really genuinely does, because, like I said, they are just a very little irrelevant club in London, and a club that'll finish, mid-table at best next season. They're not going to be a team that trouble the playoffs or even trouble the top 2. They've been that way for a long, long time now. They really genuinely have. So I'm disappointed. I'm genuinely disappointed. I think he would have been a very good player. I think he's someone who could have come in, made a massive difference to the club. He played on the right wing as well, would have been attacking, would have got forward, would have, I think, done a really good job for Rangers. So, you know, I'm sorry that he's obviously not joining. You know, obviously if he doesn't want to be here, fine, we don't want him here. You know, you want volunteers, not hostages. So if he doesn't want to be here, let him go and play for QPR. And I think he's made a really bad decision in his career. I think he genuinely has. Like I said, I was pretty stunned with that one yesterday when I read it. I think it's a ridiculous move. The other one that is going around, there's a couple more transfer stories to touch on in this video. One is obviously the Owen Beck move. The Liverpool left back, Owen Beck, obviously doesn't really have a chance to become a Liverpool player. Liverpool obviously have just splashed, I think, about 45 million on Milos Kerkez, the Hungarian international, probably one of the best young left backs in English football right now, even though he's Hungarian. Obviously they've got Kostas Tsimikas, they've got Andy Robertson. They've got, you know, 3 quality left backs at the club. But, you know, realistically, he is way down the pecking order. Even if one of those 2 were to leave, which there's been talk of, you know, he is way down the pecking order at Liverpool. He was very good for Blackburn on loan. He did very well for Dundee on loan. So, you know, he knows the Scottish game. He is a very good young left back. Again, 22, I think he's very much in that kind of player trading model type player that, you know, 2-3 years down the line, you could be looking to move on for a substantial fee. You know, this would perhaps indicate that if Rangers are looking at Owen Beck and there is a serious interest in Owen Beck there, that maybe one of the left backs we have at the club now is going to leave. I think of the 3 that we have, Hjefte, Ridvan and Fraser, you're probably looking at either Robbie Fraser or Ridvan being the 2 favourites to move on at the end of, throughout this window. Ridvan probably been the favourite, obviously, with lots of Turkish clubs interested in bringing him back to Turkey. Don't get me wrong, I like Ridvan. I really do. I think he's a good footballer. I think he's probably the best left back at the club. He's good going forward. He's good defensively. It's just his fitness issues. Obviously, the fact that he cannot stay fit is massive for me. Huge. And, you know, we can't keep going down this route of having players constantly on the sidelines, constantly injured, and paying them a decent chunk of money every single week. Owen Beck, for me, would be a very good move if it's true. It'd be a permanent transfer, not a loan. Liverpool apparently are willing to let him go. Like I said, they do have an inundation of left backs at the moment at the club. So I think this would be a very good move for Liverpool, for Liverpool to sell him to us. I think it'd be a very good move for Rangers to bring him in. You know, Beck is a good footballer. He's a very good footballer, and you know, like I said, he's played when he was at Dundee. He was outstanding. He was brilliant at Dundee. He gets the Scottish game. He was excellent for Blackburn Rovers as well. So at the end of the day, I really hope that this one is a goer, and that that Liverpool do sell us Owen Beck, because I think it would be an excellent move for Rangers. Talk of Cyril Dessers as well. Now, apparently the Ajax Athens move has kind of hit a bit of an impasse. The most they're willing to pay is 4 million. We're looking for around about 5.5, 6 apparently for the player. Personally, I would take a can of Red Bull and a pack of Revels for him. But there's talk this morning that Feyenoord, one of his former clubs, have come back in for him and are looking at a possible move for Dessers. If this is true, this could be a good way for Rangers to get a bit more cash in the door. Look, I think, realistically, whatever you think of Cyril Dessers, the fact that the club are willing to let him leave and are talking to a number of clubs quite clearly about selling him shows you that he is not part of Russell Martin's plans, that Russell Martin doesn't see him as a player who fits his system. The way that Martin will want to play is with a fast, strong, aggressive striker up top. Dessers is none of those things. He's not aggressive. He falls on his arse way too much and cries like a toddler. He is not fast at all. He hasn't got any pace to speak of. So to such, he's not that aggressive either. He loses a lot of his one-on-ones. He loses a lot of his aerial duels. He doesn't press particularly well. He doesn't work the whole back four in the same way that Danilo and Hamza do. So for me, it's quite clear that the manager is not really a fan in terms of seeing him as part of the system. So I do believe that he will move him on. I really hope. Look, my feelings on Dessers. I just don't think he's good enough for the club. And people can talk about the 50-odd goals he's scored in 2 seasons. Yeah, but how many has he missed? And how many of those 50-odd goals are padding goals? Goals that actually didn't mean anything. Genuinely pointless goals. Because it was like when we were already 2-0 up, 3-0 up, he came on and scored or something like that. There's quite a few of them in there. Like I said, I just don't think he's got the ability. And he is a player you cannot depend on and cannot rely on. That if it's 0-0 in an Old Firm game or 0-0 in a cup final and the ball falls to him in front of the goal, he's just as likely to hit the post or blaze it over as he is to put it in the back of the net. You need someone a lot more reliable than Cyril Dessers. Obviously, Dor Turgeman was someone we've been looking at. Mateo Fregan we've been looking at. I personally still wouldn't go any further than perhaps look at Lawrence Shankland as well, a guy who scores goals in Scotland for fun. Yes, didn't have the best of seasons last year, but then again, Hearts had a really awful season last year. So, at that element of, that I would look at Shankland. I think he's a better all-round player than Dessers. I think he could offer a lot. I think he could play 10, he could play 9. Again, I think he's a much better player than Cyril Dessers. He's younger, a little bit younger, 2 years younger than Dessers as well. Rangers fan. So look, I think there's a lot going there. I think there's a lot we could do, but any striker move does seem to be dependent on us getting rid of Cyril Dessers, and I just hope it's sooner rather than later we get him gone and out the door. Look, there's a lot to do, and it's worrying that we still haven't got anyone in through the door yet. And people go, well, calm down, it's not even July yet. It's not that reason. It's because of that Champions League situation. We need these players in, we need them settled in, we need them bedded in, ready for those Champions League qualifiers. That's what we need players in. If we can get 2-3 through the door before then let's hope we can get that done. Guys, I'd love to know your thoughts on all the conversations this morning around transfers this afternoon. Thank you for watching Glasgow Raiders Nation, guys. As always, if you enjoyed the content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember always, we are the people.